We're getting close to the end of our session. I have been told that we can go on till maximum 1:10, but I don't want to. I'm not encouraging you to take up all of that time. I want to leave as much time for discussion and questions as possible. So our final presenter is Paulo Esteves, who is Professor, and I don't know what IRI is.
At IR Institute in PUC-Rio.
The International Relations Institute in Rio, and General Supervisor at the BRICS Policy Centre. So he probably has a beyond Brazil view to give us as well as a Brazil view, but I think he's going to focus on Brazil in this presentation.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me here. Can I use the PowerPoint?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Sorry.
Thank you. I'll try to be brief. Loads of questions were asked. Oh, okay. It's better now? I'll try to be brief. Loads of questions were asked. The presentation has 4 parts, a general overview in which I will spend most of my time, of Brazilian South-South cooperation practices. I will try to compare those practices with DAC, OECD practices as well, and try to compare them to the other BRICS, not all the other BRICS countries, but at least with India and China, and try to sketch a brief conclusion. Just as I don't want to bother you with this, but I do think there are 2 things through which Brazilian cooperation practices are actually path dependent. The first one, it's all the agenda of the 70s that relate development with the revision or the transformation of the main international institutions, economic international institutions, I mean. The second one was the impact of the structural adjustment and economic reforms, either in Brazil, but I think in other countries, and other middle-income countries as well. This impact was responsible for a kind of a hybrid. I think Andrew mentioned that before. It's a new relationship between state and market, which does not fit entirely in the liberal model, and it is. From my point of view, it is exactly these kind of hybrids that are being exported nowadays. The third thing is the growing presence of these middle-income countries or emerging powers in the field of international cooperation since the 2000. I had this data between 8 and 10. Matthew mentioned 12% of an entire field, but something in between, let's say, 10 and 12%. Brazilian promises for South-South cooperation follows the main script: reciprocity, respect for national sovereignty, non-conditionality, and demand-driven. And Brazil started to report a few years ago its own practice in the field. So every 2 years, Brazil launches a report called COBRADI, which is a report made by the Institute for Applied Economics in Brazil. It's a think tank related to the presidents of the Republic. And Brazil, the last one, sorry, was let's say stuck in the printer house for 1 year and a half, exactly because of those questions that were discussed in the morning. The main political problem is how to explain that Brazil is actually asking money to develop the North, ask foreign money to develop the North, and at the same time is investing $300 million in development cooperation. That's a political problem, and it is something that impacts directly on the report task. Brazil takes its own practice in 5 different tasks, or 5 different sectors: humanitarian aid, scholarships, technical and scientific cooperation, contribution to international organizations, and finally, with the experience of Haiti, peacekeeping operations. I will take the first 4. This is the basic data from 2005 and 2009. I guess the last report will be issued, if it was not yet, but will be issued by the end of this year, at the end of this year, I guess. So I will concentrate my presentation in technical cooperation. As you can see, you have a very strong curve during the last 4 years. And the main areas with which Brazil cooperate are Latin America and the Caribbean, and also more recently Africa. The main ways that Brazil used to do that is bilateral most of the time, but also triangular, given the legal situation. I will discuss that a little bit further. And finally, regional arrangements. This has an important impact on the main countries with which Brazil cooperates. The emphasis on the region, and especially the emphasis on Mercosur, has an impact on the kind of country with which Brazil cooperates or take as partner. Sorry about that. It is in Portuguese. Renda alta means high income is the red one. Renda baixa is low income is the purple. Renda média alta is medium high is the white. Renda média baixa, the last one, the blue, is middle low income. So since we have this emphasis in Mercosur, the main partner of Brazil is Argentina, which is, I'm not sure now, it's in between high and high middle or middle high, sorry, or middle low. The main areas are those, especially the main sectors, especially agriculture, health, and education. Technical education has a very strong, a very important role here. Finally, what Brazil does is training and capacity building most of the time, giving equipment of diverse nature, and paying for associated administrative costs. But most of the time is training and capacity building. The organizational structure is quite interesting, actually. Brazil was a recipient country for many years, and as a recipient country, Brazil developed or created this cooperation agency, which was completely prepared to receive, but not to be a donor, or not to take an important role as a donor. And the other feature is that Brazil developed some governmental related agencies which became part of the development cooperation development cooperation schemes as well. So Embrapa is the Brazilian agriculture enterprise. Fiocruz is the most important health institution in Brazil, and Senai is responsible for technical education. And those agencies, they were operating as receivers in the field of development cooperation for many years. So they developed their own capacity and their own network within this field. And in doing so, they are outside. They are out there looking for partners and looking for projects to be developed. Although ABC, although the cooperation agencies has the role or has the mandate to coordinate, it is quite difficult to coordinate such autonomous agencies as Embrapa, Fiocruz, and Senai. They have a big, a very significant autonomy towards ABC. And the other thing is ABC is considered most of the time as an executive agency. The policies are actually defined by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. To complicate a little bit more I will try to finish quite fast. To complicate a little bit more our picture here, we have the development bank. All that report that I mentioned before, it doesn't work with any kind of investments or any kind of trade policies. And the development bank is becoming a very important player in the role of development field. And we have no idea in Brazil about what the bank is doing. It's a kind of a black box in Brazil, and we don't know what are the main mechanisms of coordination between ABC and BNDES, if they exist. Our main problems nowadays are we don't have, as Mexico has, as South Africa is developing now, we don't have a legal framework to cooperate. So Brazil is not allowed by law, is forbidden by law to give loans for other countries. So financial cooperation is not a possibility nowadays for Brazil. There are lots of restrictions in terms of what the Brazilian agencies can do in terms of development corporations. The relative autonomy of the agencies makes or creates a scenario in which bureaucratic competition is a reality. There is no clear coordination between those agencies, and there is no assessment or no evaluation of impact in place. What you can find actually is, since we are doing training most of the time, what you can find actually is the number of students that were taught in a given course, but you have no idea about the impact of those actions. What drives Brazil to cooperate? In the global level, the old obsession for a seat in the United Nations Security Council and a better place in the global governance, in the global governance institutions. In the regional level, to assure or to try to create to assure its hegemony in the region, and at the same time provides or contributes to its stability. In economic terms, trade, investment, and access to natural resources as the other countries, as the other BRIC countries, and finally a new drive, which is defense, especially with African countries. Brazil has started to develop this project of a blue Amazon, which means to secure the area of the South Atlantic. So Brazil is starting to cooperate with countries like Namibia in order to develop their own military sector. I will leave here. I guess I don't have any time, but I can tackle the comparison between Brazil and ODA and the other BRICS countries. Thank you.